Hello, everyone. This is Manolo Concepcion talking to you from Illinois, here in the United States of America. Born and raised in Puerto Rico. Started this project a couple of months ago called Volley Junkies. Remember that you can find us on Facebook with the Volley Junkies page and also on the YouTube page that this and every other interview will be found. We're here today with a very special guest, someone that I have been following forever, so I kind of know from the distance because I have been admiring all his work, not just in our sport, because it's one of the main sports that he works with. It's actually track and field, but it's someone that has inspired many people around the world. Someone that goes beyond one specific element, and it's Mr. Vern Gambetta. Hopefully, I pronounced your name correctly, Vern.
You did. Yes, Manuela. Thank you. I just saw the lineup of the people you've had on. I'm signing off now. That's intimidating. There's heroes on there. There's people that growing up I looked at. So I'm honored to be here, and I love volleyball. I didn't specialize in it. I grew up in Santa Barbara, California, which volleyball. Especially, sorry, I didn't even give you a chance to talk. My brother has passed away now, but he was 14 years older than me, and he used to play volley. So he'd have to take care of me when I was 5 or 6. So what was that? 1953, 52, wow. 54. And they would play on the beach, play all afternoon on the beach. At East Beach now they've moved the courts, but. And then just, the volleyball, Karch Karai, University of California, Santa Barbara. There was a coach at UCSB. When I was my fifth in California, you have to go for a 5th year, graduate year for your teaching credential. Mm-hmm. He was the Rudy Sawara, and he used to train. He was still playing for the U.S. national team, and we were training there for the decathlon. And he took a team to Cuba. I don't want to, some of the listeners will probably know, I think it was, one of the first times the U.S. team went to Cuba after the revolution. I think it was 71 before the 71 Pan Am Games or 70. And he came back, and I just remember picking his brain about jumping stuff. And the more we got into it, I'm going, that's Polish triple jump stuff. And the Cubans had brought all these Polish coaches in track and field and the other sports. So there's cross transfer, inbreeding, however you want to call it. So I'm honored to be on the program. So
I am the one honored, and for people to understand, when we bring someone like Vern into the conversation here, it's because what you do goes beyond just one sport. It's just about training the athlete, training the person, and inspiring people to be better coaches no matter what sport you're in. So I think that it relates, beyond just the sport of volleyball. So, what I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that about Cuba and bringing international coaches. What are some of the biggest influential countries that we do not know about that we now use, like in our sport here in the States, and maybe in your sport of track and field and also baseball?
Yeah, well, if you go back, I'm 73 years old and I've been coaching 51 years. And when I started coaching in 1969, I saw that, and this is no offense to any Americans or anything like that, but we did it a lot on native ability. We had millions of people, and smaller countries were competing with us with very small populations and were really good. And it's interesting, and I think Poland is pretty well recognized, obviously now in volleyball. But the jumping events in track and field, and the sprint and hurdle events in Poland, are really, really small country, where a lot of things that I picked up and incorporated, and Italy. A lot, the same thing in jumping and in power, in power sports. So those were two, and those are two countries that are pretty well versed in, pretty well known in volleyball. But I think the country, Finland, there was a lot of really good applied sports science research done in the 70s and 80s in Finland with Paavo Komi, Carmelo Bosco, who was an Italian at Jyväskylä, and also Norway and Sweden, the Scandinavian countries, and not to mention the two Germanys now combined. It turned out, and I'm not mentioning the Soviet Union. I mean, that was kind of a given, and what they did is just took a lot of our stuff and perfected it, didn't they? And copied it and did a better job. Did a better job coaching. The whole secret to all of this is a really deep cadre of good coaches, and that's when I saw your lineup on there. I just hope that volleyball in the U.S. recognizes. I saw John Kessel on there. Like John Kessel was just released by U.S. Volleyball. What a gem! What a great person! What a great resource! And we can't let people like that go. To coach the coaches. The secret to the success of the sport is coaching. Success of volleyball, whatever. And I can't comment on the state of coaching in volleyball. I mean, I worked with high school volleyball here at Venice High School for 4 years, but it's been like 8 years. And then with beach, with two really good, wonderful women, Megan Wallen and Kristen Bad, Kristen, who's now the sand coach at Grand Canyon for 8 years. And it was great. It was a great partnership and learned a lot from them. But I've been away from the collegiate and the international scene and things like that for a while, although I try to follow it, but this doesn't matter. The secret is coaching,
Vern, so. I know that you are obsessed in a good way with some of the things that some of the best coaches in the world that have come to the program are also obsessed with. And you're obsessed with motricity, you're obsessed with leadership, and you're obsessed with making good choices, creating good habits in order to become a better athlete. Yeah. Can you speak, number one, about motricity and maybe a little bit about motor learning and what are some things that you're passionate about that have to do with our sport?
Well, look, let's take it to the most simple, basic thing. We don't coach volleyball; we teach volleyball. And what has happened and no offense to you 20-somethings and 30-somethings, I don't know how old you are, Manuel, but I know if you came from Puerto Rico and you went to school there, you came from a different background. So
yes,
with a good background in pedagogy. A good friend of mine, Hector Lopez, was a big figure in Puerto Rico, and he was my daughter's track coach at Rice University. So, and I'm familiar with
that's awesome. Puerto Rico's done.
But so the principles of pedagogy are timeless. And that's what we've gotten away from, how to teach. And teaching is practice organization. It's how to teach skill, how to refine skill, and all of that, and developing really good practices. And that's one of the things that I have seen. I try to watch. I'm a student of many sports. And so if I go to a sports institute overseas, I try to watch other sports. And when I watch volleyball, I just see the same stuff that was done 40 years ago. Okay, we're gonna work on the slide today. So we're gonna do 20 minutes of the slide option, and I'm going, like, that violates every principle of motor learning and good pedagogy that we know. Mass practice. I had to teach some girls at Venice. There was a really good girl, 6'3" girl, and you don't teach height, as they say in volleyball and in basketball, right? And a really great kid, and she'd been a pretty good tennis player of German. She actually was born and raised in Germany, German parents. And I had to teach her how to serve, just serve. And how did you teach her how to serve? And the coach said, you take her. We'll just substitute her in to hit. And I'm going, you can't, I'm not going to let that kid do that. What did we have to do? We had to teach her how to throw, right?
That's one of the biggest mistakes I made as a coach for many, many years, Bernie, is that I emphasize too much on the what and the how instead of understanding how people learn, instead of understanding how people move before anything else, like you're saying right now.
Oh, that's crucial. So there's, before you have physical competency, which you have to have physical literacy, which is knowledge of real basic movements. Then you put those together, you put them together in an overhand throwing pattern, and then you've got hitting, you've got serving, all of that. And I mean, there's in my book, there's a lot of sports that have tremendous room for innovation, and volleyball is one of them. There's so many more things that can be done that I see not doing. Playing without boundaries. I would say. Somebody said, "Well, give me some examples." Well, play without boundaries. Play 4v6. I'm talking indoor volleyball now. Play 4v6. Play with two balls. You ever thought about doing that? You want to change decision making? Play without a net. Play without a net. And
but
let me finish this. The kids, we would warm up at Venice. I'd warm up with balloons, two different color balloons. And they'd have to make decisions, and you just put balloons out. Now, don't do it out. It won't work outdoors. But all of a sudden, footwork gets better. It's implicit learning, isn't it? So I think it's creativity and imagination will go a long way. And look outside of sports. Look outside of your sport. Well, look outside of sports. Look at dance. That too. That's what I'm trying to look at. So.
If skills are specific to the task in this world of the learning sciences, how can we then do anything else other than the actual, sport that we're teaching in order for someone to get better, Vern?
That's a great question, and Manuelo, this is the argument in my 51 years of coaching now. The pendulum's gone back and forth about specificity versus specific versus general specificity. And that, look, we know that there's a lot of things we can do over in the gym, the lifting, in terms of strength training, medicine ball. But the best way to get better as a volleyball player is to play volleyball, to dig, to hit, to slide, to jump, to serve, right? Well, you're going to do that. That's a given. But my point, and where I think I've carved a niche in my career, is what can I do as a physical preparation coach to improve your ability to get more out of your practice? And I call that trainability. So if I can do like we would do with Kristen Badd and Megan, we would do thousands of med ball actions, med ball throws, overloading movements, and that. With the girls in Venice, it was the same kind of thing. The argument is, well, that slows it down, but then their capacity when they went on the court, their trainability was that much better. So they got much more out of practice. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Absolutely.
It's a friend of mine said, well, it's a delicate dance and somebody's toes are going to get stepped on. Yes. And one thing that I try to do as a physical preparation coach, I never was a strength coach. I remember I'm still a track and field coach. And so the weight room was way beyond a weight room without walls. So we actually brought dumbbells, medicine ball boxes onto the court, and we did our this is with Venice High School volleyball, and I've done this in basketball too, where we would do our dumbbell complexes, some of our leg work before practice, and then I was there all during practice. So if three kids would rotate out, instead of sitting down and not paying attention, they might work with me on footwork or balance or body awareness or something like that. So never waste an opportunity to make the player better is kind of one of my mantras, and you got to make it. I mean, we're talking about younger athletes here. Well, the high school kids that with Megan, and they're 28, 29, 30, 35. They're professional, but it still have to be fun. Yeah.
You have talked, for the ones that do not know, he has an amazing podcast. He has a website. He has many things going on right now with it. And basically the project is to, he's one of his mottos is coaching the best to be better.
Right.
Why is this your mission? Why is this so important to you?
Well, some of it is giving back. I don't mean to sound totally altruistic, but I mean, I'm just so blessed. I got to be taught by some of the greatest coaches ever. I also had in college football two of the worst coaches ever, and I vowed that I would never be like that. And that's not a good motivation. That's a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. If you can see it there, I don't know. But I thought I would never coach like them. I would never make my athletes hate the game or hate the coach. So I had a high school basketball coach who was also my history teacher. Guess what? I became a history teacher. And he was a terrific teacher. He didn't coach basketball. I look back now. He taught basketball. He taught, but he taught people to be better basketball players, And then as I went through my career, unfortunately he's passed away now. He's just a gem of a person. Marshall Clark was the cross country coach and distance coach at Stanford when I was doing my graduate degree in coaching there, and just he calmed me down, And so and then Tom Tellez, getting to spend time with Tom, who was Carl Lewis's coach, at University of Houston, and people like that, as well as some just great people in sports science and things like that, and being able to be exposed to, to people like that. And I mentioned offline, we said Eddie Jones, who's the head coach of English rugby and amazing guy. He, by the way, folks, he took a 25% pay decrease.
Say it, Vern. Say it.
In response to the coronavirus, so they could keep people on. But Eddie Jones is one of the iconic coaches in the world. He comes to the Gain conference last year in Houston, sitting in the audience with high school freshman coaches. And I mean, I'm going, and that's the other thing. It's about humility. Look, I don't know if you can see behind me. I'm reading. I've got 6 books right here that on coaching to help me coach better. I'm very, pun intended, immersed in swimming, and for some reason we've got a niche now in swimming, and I'm trying to learn everything I can in swimming. But one of my mentors, going back 45 years, was it's terrible, Coach Cal Berkeley. North Thornton, and he's still, he's 80 some years old and he's still learning, he goes to the pool, he's retired. He gets somebody to drive him now because he can't drive on the freeways anymore, but that's what this is about. And I hope people get, it's about passion. It's about passion, and passion's a high octane fuel. You have to be careful with that because mostly you can destroy yourself.
Yeah.
So anyway,
and tell me this: what people that are around you and people that are inspired by you always say that one of the things that they're inspired by is that you're a great learner. What makes someone a great learner?
Well, my academic record up until my junior year in college would not reflect being a great learner. I'm sure my 5th grade nun and that priest that failed me twice in
I can relate to that. I can definitely relate to that. I understand what you're saying.
And I've worked with a lot of bright kids, coached at Stanford and Cal, and I always joke with them. I said, C students run the world. But no, I've had a passion for learning since I was a little kid. It didn't always reflect in grades because if I got interested in something, even in college, I would just dig down in that area and forget everything else. I went into my Econ 1A final with an A and barely got a C because I got sidelined learning something about something to do with national debt or something. And anyway, but so here's honestly where it comes from. Okay, my parents were immigrants. My dad went to the 8th grade in Switzerland, and never went formally to school here in the United States to learn English. My mother was younger than him. They didn't come together. They came at the same year, but didn't come together. And she went to the 9th grade, and then her father said, "Women don't go to school." And so she learned English. And my mother, both of them had a passion for learning, but my dad didn't quite get it. My mother did, and it started. She took me to the library. I can remember going to the library probably 5 years old, maybe even less.
Wow.
And we didn't. She didn't drive, and it was like about 12 blocks, carrying all these books back. She'd read the books to me, and it was always about curiosity. And thank God I didn't grow up in a period of time where we didn't have a television until I was like 10 years old.
No distractions.
No distractions. Everything was the radio, and radio stimulates your imagination, you know. So I think that was a factor. And then obviously the teachers and coaches, you know, that I had some really, really good teachers and in high school that really stimulated the desire to learn. So, and to be, that's a great equalizer. You know, it's a competitive, you know, it's seeking a competitive advantage in a sense to do better. So anyway. So.
Okay. And tell me this, Vern, you have a concept named Champion's Choice. And you talk about specific subjects, and, you know, including resiliency, including, you know, how to deal with failure. And, you know, and the concept is surrounded by, you know, how to create better habits. Can you tell me about that and how can we all apply it, including in our sport?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you break coaching down to its essence, right, it's teaching, and then it's creating good habits. That's, you know, punctuality, attention, all of those kinds of things. And the thing that I saw literally even in high school, but it became apparent to me playing football in college, that the good players made different choices than the average players. You know, and then as I got in athletics, track and field, and I watched, wow, I got to train. I was nowhere close, but got to train with world record holders. And there was a reason why they made champions' choices. You know, they didn't go out and drink. They didn't go out and party. They did the hard things. You know, that in the morning when it was really cold, they got up and did their morning workout. So it's creating all these habits and observing, you know, what it takes. And that's what the Champion's Choice really is, you know, it's like now, I mean, there's a whole bunch of young athletes, one of whom I have here in Sarasota that I'm working with, that are potential Olympians. And they have to, they're seniors and they just graduated. Should they go to college now or should they stay home for a year? You know, and it's a lot of them are opting to stay with their regular coaches and also not risk the, you know, and that. So there's a lot of, and so I've just seen that over the years. And, you know, it's the same thing with coaches. You ever get coaches, Manuelo, that say, you know, that all they have is excuses. Well, we only have the court for an hour, or we don't have air conditioning. You know what? Venice High School didn't have air conditioning. It was great. It was great. Those kids, they were so tough. We gave them a lot of water, you know. There's no excuses. You know, we had a saying when I was at Cal Berkeley, it's the Cal Golden Bears. All weather is bear weather. If it rained, we still worked out. The men didn't work out because they were going to melt. We still worked out. You know, and it's not mental toughness. That don't get me wrong. I'm not some drill sergeant, but it's creating a habit, and that you're going to end up having to play when it rains, or you're going to have I don't know, something's wrong with my video. But do you want me to?
Oh, here. Yes. Try to reset it right there. Still frozen. We're talking here with Vern Gambetta.
As long as you can hear me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. And
there's been some issues we had this issue the other day. Let me try this just for a second. Cam mic. I try that? No.
Yes.
Yeah, same problem. It's not working.
Try to go out of the conversation and in again, and we'll be here.
Okay, hold on. So just click out of StreamYard.
Yeah, like click out and then go again and click in as well. We're talking here with Vern Gambetta. He's someone that has worked with some of the best athletes in the world in multiple sports: basketball, baseball, volleyball, track and field, and now swimming as well. So someone that I feel really fortunate about having this conversation with, and someone that we could be learning a lot from. He actually has a website, and his project is called Gain. I invite everyone to try to access his content because it's one of the best things out there in terms of great information, great data, great guests, and at the same time, opportunities to continue to get better. So it's not just about our sport. It's more about how to be better coaches, how to be better teachers, how to be better learners, how to deal with failure. And I think that those are things that, and some of the reasons that I actually started following Vern Gambetta, who, I didn't have any relationship with in terms of our sport. I actually learned through him by a friend of mine in the track and field world when I was told that he was one of the premier coaches of coaches, just like our great John Cassell. In our sport of volleyball, Vern has been that way for so many sports and so many people around the world.
Yeah, it's
Vern. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, something's going. We had this issue the other day on my master class. I'm going to have to. The Apple Store is closed, so we're going to have to. You're going to have to imagine what I look like. Just imagine this very handsome, young, 28-year-old with a broken nose. No, just kidding. So, so we'll do the best we can. Sorry, Manuel. It's my end.
Hey, Vern, I have a question. There are rumors that you have trained, of course, you have trained some of the best athletes in the world, but does this group of people include Michael Jordan?
Well, I mean, he was a member of the Bulls when I was there. So I don't like to, that's something I don't like to, too many people are, how would you say, their identity is based upon who they worked with.
Yes.
I did. I worked with him both, and I like. He's a good man. If he respects you, and he did me, everything's fine. If you watch, I didn't watch The Last Dance, but if he doesn't like you, look out. But no, I did, and he was good. That's where I said I've been lucky too to be around the best of the best. In a fair number of sports. You laugh. I remember. Talk about champions' choices. I'm sure Karai doesn't remember me, but he was at Santa Barbara High School playing volleyball when I was a track coach there. And I remember watching him play with his dad on the beach when he was like 6 years old. And, every once in a while, you see that one that's special, that has that. But that guy worked his butt off, and I saw that. Volleyball practice would end. He'd come down and run steps and different things like that.
Did you see that coming, since high school with Karch? Like what are some of the things that you saw that made you think, I don't know how good this guy is going to be, but he's going to be special?
Well, it's funny. Karch Karai and the greatest water polo player of all time were in the same they were in the same class at two different high schools. And I had Terry Schroeder. I had in junior high. Junior high is 12, 13, 14. And at age 14, I didn't know what he was going to be great at, but he had all the ingredients. He'd come at noontime and watch. We didn't have video then. I had this one film called The Amateur Athlete, and we had it for a week. And he came at noontime and watched the whole thing every noontime. It was kind of a instructional, like that. And what I saw with Karch, I didn't follow him that close, but because I was very focused on my team. But just a focus way beyond what a typical high school kid would have, in terms of how he, and how he made other people better. There was there wasn't other guys on his team in high school like him, but he made them better, and that's part of it too, So yeah, it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch and see, like right now, I'm working here with I'm doing a lot with swimming, and if everything goes well now, who knows? But for the teams that are using what we call the gain swimming system, we might have 5 athletes on the American Olympic team. And I remember those kids when they were 12 years old. What was the difference? What choices did they make? Yeah, it was that same commonality, that focus, that attention to detail, that respect, and all of those, and willingness to learn, too. So big, really.
What about coaches, Vern? What are some signs that you have seen from the best coaches around these athletes? What are things that they all have in common?
The thing that they all have in common, won't even have to hesitate, is they coach the person, not the athlete. They're sensitive. They're sensitive to the bigger picture. You're a volleyball player for 2 hours a day, or a swimmer for 4 hours a day, or whatever. But what about the rest? And that's what I've seen. All of them, all the ones that I've been around, they're really good teachers. Like we said, just the same theme. Really good teachers, a lot of attention to detail, very, very organized and very planned. Learn and they're learners, but they not just book learning, but they learn victory and defeat. Too. I think that's. Oh, go ahead. No, you.
No. Within that concept, what is how can we define winning in a better way for us to deal better with failure?
Well, yeah. I'll tell a story. My first year in professional soccer with the Tampa Bay Mutiny, we traded for a player, Beppe Galdaresi. Good guy, he started for the Italian World Cup team in 1986, which tells you he's pretty good. Little guy, about 5 feet 6 inches tall. And in Europe, they call the fitness guys professor, prof. In Latin America, same thing. So after he got to know me, and I talked to him and wanted to know what he did, and he had really bad knees, and we got a good relationship. So we played on the previous Saturday, and we won the game 1-0. And it was a great game, tremendous game. Okay, and and the coach was all happy. Next week we lost the game 1-0, and so now we're at practice on Monday, and because we lost, the coach was pissed off, and it was just everybody, and so he walks off with me, puts his arm around me, he says, "Prof," he says, "last week we play terrible and win everything great. Yesterday we play great and lose everything bad." Okay, think about that for a minute. And I said, yeah, and so it's reframing. We're talking about volleyball here. You've got your game model. You can play the greatest game in the world, the greatest matches in the world, and lose. And you need to celebrate the little things, the excellent, the number of passes, all of that. The score, invest in the process. These are a little bit trite, but you have to do it day to day. You can't just do it on match day. And invest in the process, and hold the players accountable. I mean, they're not dumb. They look up at the scoreboard and they say they've lost, and but it's how you frame it, too.
Vern, I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone that is watching. They're watching from Chile. Carolina Poblete is watching from Chile. Manuel as well. Like we're getting people from Bolivia, Puerto Rico. Javier Cruz Scott, who always watches. We're getting people from Mexico as well. So thank you to everyone that is watching right now. People from the US, of course. And actually, my friend who was the one that introduced me to who was Vern Gambetta years ago was Mr. Jan Carlos from Puerto Rico that works right now in Florida.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was the first one that told me about you. But I wanted to ask you, Vern, that is a really important subject, framing. The concept of framing and in learning right now, it's so important. And how do we do a better job of redirecting the attention to the positive things versus talking so much about the mistakes that players make? So like, how do we deal with that as coaches?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is Doug Lemov, Lemov, has a terrific book called Practice Perfect, and he was on my podcast 2 podcasts ago. And I think what we have to do better is coach the correction. So you've got your libero and they're trying to dig the ball and they're not quite getting to it. And they know they're not getting to it. So give them an action that will help correct them so they can get to the ball. And that to me is what framing is. So coaching the correction and this idea that we always have to be positive too. I think we've learned false praise doesn't make anybody better. Mm-hmm. We have to come to an agreement with our team and with our coaches right from the start that we're going to correct the correctable, mm-hmm. But we're going to do it in a manner that's going to make you better. And I think the other thing that we fail to do, especially in team sports, is peer coaching. Okay, so if we're working on defense today, and you've got 6 players on the sideline, 6 players rotating in, like that, each player should have another player that they're responsible for coaching. Mm-hmm. So I think that helps a lot. Now everybody has ownership. It's not all on you. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work it's easier to just, come on, try harder or something like that, and that doesn't make you better. So, yeah.
Process versus outcome. How do we keep athletes emphasizing and thinking and not so much, we want them thinking about that outcome. We want them thinking about the result, but at the same time, the attention on the moment, on that process. How do you deal with that, Vern?
Well, I think it comes back to us. I put a lot of responsibility and weight back on the coach. And I think that from day one, when you're working with a team or you're working with an athlete, that you have to explain the process and show that you're really invested in the process too. Because I've seen coaches that say, "Oh, it's all about the process," and then as soon as the outcome is wrong twice, they forget the process.
Crazy, yes,
yeah. So clearly understand the process, and that's good teaching progressions, isn't it? It's good. It comes back to good pedagogy. I keep saying the same thing, different ways, and I hope the listeners understand that. But it's and getting people invested in the process means you have to be invested in the process and you have to clearly understand the process and lay it out yourself. So I do think that I'm a big believer in my high school basketball coach taught me this starting then. We used to go 10 minutes. We had a mandatory, it was a Catholic school. We started practice at 4:00 and at 3, school got out at 2:30, and at 3:45 to 2:45 to 3:40, we had a study hall. We had to do our homework. Mm-hmm. And then we had 10 minutes where he would explain what we were going to do in practice in a classroom. Okay. Mm-hmm. on a blackboard in those days. Yes. And we had 10 minutes to get dressed. And then when practice started, there was all that, it was action. It was action. And I saw University of Oregon football when Chip Kelly was there, when they were really on top of their game. It was the same thing. When practice started, they knew what they had to do. But boy, those coaches really have to be prepared. The onus is on you. The onus is on you, the coach. So, yeah.
Random versus block. Tell me a little bit about what have you found throughout your great experience as a coach, and how do we apply it in our sport?
my as I said earlier, my observation still with volleyball, and again, I don't get to see practices day to day.
Right.
Too many block practices, too many drills that go way too long versus a random practice. So you could do, I hate to say minutes, but you could do, let's say minutes. You could go 3 minutes of serving. Or receiving serves and first pass, and then get to something, even though they might have, the first pass might have been not incomplete each time. Then you have to go right to something else and then come back to serving, and recognize that if you do a blocked practice today, say you're working on a particular hit in the middle or something, and you do it over and over and over, that middle hitter is going to get they're going to leave practice saying, oh, you got it now. Guess what happens? You run that to start a practice tomorrow, and they don't have it. And the only way you get it is to do what that's called interleaving, where you do 3 to 5 minutes of something, get away from it. Sometimes the motor learning experts are now saying even go days, in the off season if you have. So let them forget a little bit, and then they have to come back and try to recall it. And that makes the learning deeper, because it's about deep learning, isn't it? You want to ingrain the skill. And so remember, block practice will make you good for today, but random practice is going to make you a deeper skill over time.
When you are, in that skill acquisition process, what are some of the, do you think that we should be using more block training in the cognitive stage, and then right when they are getting into associative, kind of like go a little bit more random? How do you deal with that?
That's a great question. I mean, I don't know if I would go so far as to say block. Yeah, it'd be block, but yeah, where you're using more explicit learning. Okay, where you're saying your foot is here, just like you have to get them. And if that's more explicit learning, then give them 5 minutes to explore.
Okay.
Then come back. Because I think what we've done. So I guess my answer, I would say, I wouldn't block it so much. Is I would have my progression clear, then give them time to make mistakes. Serve into the net, whatever, hit the back wall, whatever. And then make a few corrections and come back, or on that. So
what are some signs that we can know when a player is building their motor program? When they're dealing when they're getting into associative right there, what are some things that we can know? Okay, this athlete is dealing with this part of the process.
Well, you see things start to smooth out. I mean, I always look at the kinetic chain, and you look ankle, knee, hip, shoulder, elbow, wrist. And, a lot of times you'll see a break, and now it starts to, it's, maybe 2 out of 3 times it's a little more coordinated, a little more synced up. And this guy, I wish the camera was on because you could see me, but this is where I think it's kind of weird in a little bit. I think sometimes you have to watch their face and not look at the outcome. And for one thing, that's the other thing you live for as a coach, is to see it when somebody gets it too, and a lot of times, and I don't know if you've experienced this, they feel it before they get it.
Yes, for sure.
They feel it before they get it, and I'm okay with that. It's going to come pretty quick once, and that's deep learning, I think. So,
let's talk about that. Let's talk about the importance of how the learner feels about the skill that you're teaching, how they feel in that moment, and maybe go into state dependent memory. Like, can you talk a little bit about those concepts?
Say it again.
How I feel about what I'm learning, and because I was interesting to me that Trevor Regan, came to our program, and he was talking about how important it is for us to understand that the way I feel about learning, whatever you're teaching me, is going to affect learning itself.
Absolutely. think of going. I can even remember the priest's name going into Algebra 1, Father Bernard. It was like he's going to hit me over the head today. You know, it was fear, right?
Yes.
And the other classroom I went in, and it was like I couldn't wait to sit down and sit on the edge of my chair. So, you know, you got to create an atmosphere where there's an expectation that I'm coming here to get better. And to me, some of that is play. I haven't seen this with my own eyes, but I've heard it from several people. And one of my really good colleagues was the performance director for the Golden State Warriors. And this is what Kerr does. I mean, it's chaos for 10 minutes. There's balls flying all over. There's heavy metal music and rap music, and he creates an atmosphere that, you know, it's fun, but they're doing stumping with the ball. They're doing, you know, that creates a learning and you say that's a learning environment. Well, yeah, you get really, and I like to see kids, high school kids. I like to see big pros and stuff do crazy things. You know, like with basketball players, do see a big man and just doing Stephen Curry's drills or something like that, and because to me that creates a readiness. You know, you're getting outside yourself. It's because I think sometimes, you know, and I have a tendency to do this. I still do to be too serious, you know, and too, you know, like yesterday we had a meet and one of the girls who doesn't quite know what to make of me, and she finished. She swam well. The 400 IM, the backstroke's in there, and I laughed. I said, "Hey, that was really cool. I've never seen you." I said, "I wish you could practice like that." She laughed, and I said, "You know, if your backstroke, if you swam straight, you'd even swim a lot faster." You know, she laughed, and so in the afternoon when she swam again, she goes, "I swam straight that time." So yeah, I think you know, and I don't think they tell you that in motor learning or skill acquisition class. I think you learn that. That's a pedagogical idea that you learn when you, you know, when like going back when you student teach or student coach, you know, that, you know, and then I think sometimes we forget it. Like, come on, let's go. We got to start practice. No. You know, Anson Dorrance, who's, you know, one of the winningest coaches, right, at University of North Carolina. So he brought me in 1998.
Creator of the cauldron that we use in volleyball, by the way.
Yeah, competitive cauldron. Yeah. And he wanted me to revise their warm up. And so the girls start to come down, and I think, geez, and what do they do? 10 minutes, they're laying there stretching, laughing, telling jokes. So then he introduces me, and we do the warm up. Then I stayed at his house, and I said, "Well, I thought you wanted me to, because I don't believe in static stretching before." He said, "No." He says, "I got to give them 10 minutes so that I can have the next hour and a half." And he said, "Fine." He said, "Your warm up, we're going to use that warm up from now on, but I'm not changing the first 10 minutes because they came from class. That's their bonding time. That's when they got to decompress." And I go, "You know what? That's why you've won 700 million matches or something like that." You know?
Mindset, Coach. And you have written a lot about intrinsic motivation. What role do we have? Maybe in early ages, Coach. Maybe for the coaches that might be watching that are dealing with really early ages. Maybe as parents, you know, as people just around early ages. What can we do to enhance and probably, you know, increase the amount of people that are motivated intrinsically?
Yeah, but you know, I think that's you know, teaching through games. You know, I think does a lot of that rather than through multiple games that teach you, that eventually lead you to the specific skills of volleyball, right?
Mhm.
And understanding that making it okay, and this is the hardest thing with today's kids, to take a risk, to
Hmm.
to try new things. And you have to, early on, you've got to, the good coaches, the really great coaches I've seen with youth, that's what they do. They make it okay for the kids to play on the edge a little bit. And
Yeah.
call it your college coach and great
Mhm.
players play on the edge, but it starts at 7, 8, 9.
Mhm.
Willing to risk. The A students all want to get it always right all the time, and it's okay. It's okay.
In that same line, have you coached elite Olympic athletes that lack confidence off off sports, but they're really confident in the sport, or are they completely related?
Well, I'm going to answer it both ways. They're completely related. I think I don't know if this is going to sound right. I think that the great ones that sustain excellence find a way to deal with that. The other part.
Mm-hmm.
I just got done reading a biography of a great Australian swimmer, Libby Trickett.
Mm-hmm.
And I know her. I worked with her coach he's now in Singapore. Great coach, Stefan Vidmar. And I wrote him after I read the book. I said, you deserve a gold plaque, not a gold medal. Because she talked about all the other things that were going on in her life, and her haven was the pool.
Mm.
And what Stefan, what he did at the pool. So, and there's some people that say that to be an Olympian, to be an Olympic, world record holder, it's just not normal. And in coaching, you did hear a lot of people talking about balance in your life. I don't think you can be a good coach and have balance in your life. I'm sorry.
I agree.
And I mean, you've got to
unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but I think it's so true.
Well, you got to have proportionality. You've got to be fully there when you're there. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, my 40-year-old son is at home now. He's finishing up his PhD at Princeton. And we've had a lot of talks about that because I didn't see a lot of him really the first 6, 8 months of his life. Now, you'd say, well, that doesn't matter. Well, I think it does matter.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, no, you guys, and my daughter said the same thing. No, you're always there when you need to be. And they pointed, and that's what they pointed out. The key thing is you got to be there. And I think those athletes, compartmentalizing, being able to do that, it's just not normal to train 5 hours a day and be, like some of the things, that we do. And where I'm really concerned about, and I've seen this way too many times, even with high level collegiate athletes, is what happens post-career. There's a huge void. Same thing. I mean, I went through this last year. I have struggled off and on with depression, but because I was no longer coaching day to day, and I was going to Singapore and then come back and, and there's a void there. You're used to, it's 3 o'clock to be, out on the field or something like that, so it's a big picture, isn't it?
I relate to that. When I used to define my life of who I was as an athlete. For me, that was who I was. Right, when I got, when I had an accident that I couldn't play anymore in 2001, I went through a small depression as well, understanding who am I now? What am I going to be defined by? And I think that making that decision, that champion choice of understanding how to now, how to live afterwards, it's a big deal in every sport, not just for athletes, but for coaches as well. Like, what do you do to continue to feel and consider yourself relevant? It's a matter of how we deal with that adversity that we always talk about.
No, your question is that was the thing I posted the other day. Define yourself. I catch myself at times. I was driving down to the pool the other morning for workout, thinking about somebody else, and I go, and my self-talk was, shut up, to the guy on my shoulder. I said, shut up. you're letting somebody define you again. And I have this ongoing thing with my daughter, who was a good athlete, played soccer, football in college, and sprinted for Victor. But she knows now, and she's big time and a big executive in a, that when she struggles, it's because she's letting other people define her instead of defining yourself. And I see that. We're going to have a conversation next week with this one athlete here in Sarasota about, I had with her mother yesterday, you've got to figure out a way, a strategy. And as adults, as coaches, we help with that, but
it happens to me. Like, it happens to me that with all the players that I have coached since 2001, the ones that I feel that sometimes define me of how I feel are the ones that, end up not liking the way I coach, or end up, transferring, or end up, they're just not agreeing with how I coach. And I have let, some of those moments define me for a period of time, for sure.
Yeah, and that's why when you asked about Michael Jordan or that, I am one of the few people I think you'll find, and you can look at, I sent you my resume or whatever, but I don't like to talk about who I coached or who I worked with or something like that, because I don't want that to define me. I think that's really, really important. I just feel like I am fortunate that I've been able to be in the right place at the right time and have the knowledge and be able to gain the respect of people like that to make a contribution to make them better. But you see too much of this today, so-and-so's personal trainer, or, you see so-and-so's mental coach. Just, my friend Jimmy Radcliffe at University of Oregon, who you probably don't know who he is, not very many people know who he is. He's one of the best ever. And he said support staff, which we are, should be backstage, not on stage. The athlete that are on stage, the spotlight's on them, and we do everything we can to help make them better. It's not complicated. So,
Vern, I have two more questions. One of them is, you have trained against some of high level track and field athletes that train years for seconds.
Years for seconds, yeah.
How in the world you as a coach deal with that? And maybe everything goes well, goes perfect. He or she's in the best shape of his or her life, and then she falls, and then, or a false start or anything like that. Like, how do you coach that?
You don't. I mean, those are. Put it in the perspective of the coronavirus, or put it in, it's still sport, but yeah, you've spent literally years for that 13 seconds or whatever. I know my friend Gary Winkler with his girl was the favorite for the hurdles in Athens and fell on the third hurdle, overwhelming favorite, and it took her. I mean, he's a real quiet guy, so I don't know how it affected him. I don't have an answer for that. I've had it happen. It's disappointing.
As you know, Vern, one of the, probably the best track athlete that has come from Puerto Rico, Javier Coulson.
Yeah, right.
How people responded for, to him getting second on a really important competition for me. Yeah. It's it's one of the most brutal aspects of sports.
Yeah.
Of the outside expectations, people not knowing the hard work that they and the process they go through.
Well, I think that's one of the hardest things that exists today. That's really different. If I look back through my career, you have social media, which have instant access. You have all these, not just ESPN. I mean, if you're in Latin America, you have special, channels. In Oceania, when I was down there, 24-hour day rugby and cricket, and all of those kinds of things. And I do think that's where our role as a coach has changed. And I think that, like, starting with this young lady here in Sarasota, after talking to her mom yesterday, that if she just, well, that I am going to I'm not her swim coach, but we're part of the team, that we need to make her comfortable with interviews and recognize that the spotlight is going to be on you, Emma, whether you want it or not. So, let's come up with a strategy, that she's comfortable with in that case. And, I've watched Javier Colson really closely. Again, he's probably the first non-baseball player from Puerto Rico to have that kind of status, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
I mean, he had the weight of the island on his shoulders, and he looked like that in London. I was I forget what lane he was in, but he had the weight of the island on his shoulders, And the same thing with the kid from Trinidad, it was the same thing. And conversely, you had Keyshawn Walcott who had no expectations and wins the javelin. Somebody from the Caribbean to win the javelin and from the Western Hemisphere. It's only happened once, but there was no expectations except for his coach and him, So I think we need to learn lessons from those kinds of things.
Vern, you, even if you accept it or not, you are a legend, and I want I want people to know and understand how do you want to be remembered?
As a good teacher and somebody who cared, and that's all. Just he was a good teacher. He cared about me, cared about people, and that's it. If you can do that when you leave this earth, that's, I guess that, particularly now when there's people in the neighborhood dying and things like that, and you're 73 years old, I hope I think of pretty good genes in my family, but you do think about legacy a little bit. You'd be lying if you didn't, and is it, the video's off, but there's there's trophies in a closet downstairs. And I worked with Kenyon college swimming. The head coach was Jim Steen. He's retired now. They won 32 straight NC2A Division III men's swimming championships. And they won 24 of the first 26 women's. Now, but here's the
no scholarships and winning so much. Wow.
Yeah. But here's the cool part. So I go visit him, and there was 10 national championship trophies stuck back in a closet. I wish the video was on. And that wasn't what it was about. And he could tell me, I become friends with him. He could tell me stories about swimmers on those teams that never heard of. Some of them that, and that. Well, that's the legacy, isn't it?
That's true.
Winning all that stuff. That's icing on the cake. So anyway.
No, really reminds me always, and I mentioned it yesterday in Spanish in a different conversation about how John Kessel mentioned something like that when he was recognized in the Hall of Fame, and everyone was talking about how many wins they had and all that, and then he stood in the podium and talked about, hey, my number is, I don't know, it was like 17 or 19, and it was the people that gave up the sport after he coached them. Those are the people that he always remember and made him better as a coach because he didn't want that to happen again. So I think that's a true legacy of how many people you get to impact by being inspired of the things that you should and should not continue to do or be doing for the rest of your life. So I appreciate your time today, Vern. And
no problem. I hope maybe sometime we can just do it again and just maybe talk about just some of the physical preparation stuff, if you run out of guests and that, because volleyball is one of the coolest sports to work with from a physical preparation standpoint. But I do have some different ideas, and it was fun going from, my first exposure to volleyball as a 5-year-old was beach, and then working indoors and then working with beach. So, but another time. So I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm sorry for the viewers about the video. There's something going on with and it's a new computer too. So
Not at all. Not at all. No worries. And you for sure will be coming back, because then we're gonna dedicate that program to strength and conditioning. But I really wanted to take the opportunity today to talk about how you are inspiring people beyond the sport that you usually work with, because of your words, because of your actions. So, Vern, tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, at Coach Gambetta is my Twitter account. You can the website, the best website now. There's a Gambetta.com, but we're actually closing that down, and because I'm doing everything with Gain, is to go to. I'm just pulling it up here. The Gain, TheGainNetwork, GainNetwork.com, and you can see what we're doing there. And we do a once a month master class by subscription, and having just some really cool people on in that. So, but and then I'm on Facebook. Let me see. I guess it's just I don't know. I'm still stuck in the analog age sometimes, but you can find me. You can find me on Facebook too.
Everyone should be following Vern Gambetta. He has really good information and very consistent into every single day, almost every single day, posting something that will be useful, not just for a specific sport, but for all of us coaches and athletes out there that want and continue to be inspired. So again, thank you so much, Coach.
Thank you very much. Take care.
All right. See everyone. And remember, tomorrow we're going to have Raul Lozano, who has been with multiple different national teams from Argentina. Is going to join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So remember that you can find this program on YouTube. So please subscribe to our page and also on Facebook. This is Manolo Concepcion, and today was Vern Gambetta. Thank you so much.